Good evening. I am the narrator, and welcome to my parlor. Tonight's story is Talk to the Hand. Talk to the hand. I hated the phrase. Talk to the hand. Every time I squinted and grit my teeth. Talk to the hand, talk to the hand. I breathed in and obliged. Talk to the hand. I hated talking to the hand. Talk to the hand. And yet I did. I always trudged to the back bedroom to talk to the hand. I had asked for extra pork hocks at lunch, dinner. The two are combined in my home and served at 9 p.m. This was a transgression to my father. I don't have to. He can't make me. But I can't go without tomorrow's pork hocks, so I submitted. I slowly rose and trudged to the room, guided by the ubiquitous aroma of asbestos. This was no ordinary hand. It was not attached to an arm. It could walk on its fingers, so long as it had the required calories which it absorbed through its pores. It walked and talked. I arrived and stood in the precipice. It was perched on Father's desk. It saw me, even without eyes. "Hello," it greeted. Assumed the position. I dropped to my knees, rested my hands at my sides, and stared at the floor. "What do you say?" it asked. "I have sinned," I muttered. "Good. I overheard your conversation, so know what happened. Just accept your culinary allowance and never aggravate your father by trying to negotiate it. Is that all right?" "Yes." I rose, turned, and hastened off. "Enjoy," it said after me. In the kitchen, Father slept in his chair, his chin glazed with grease. My brother Ginzo slept in his high chair, his face pressed in his bowl. As I watched his hair tangle with his scraps, I recalled and declined my chore. The hand could go hungry that night, my duty be damned. Besides, the new Late Show, where the ghost of Johnny Carson interviewed those other deceased celebrities, premiered at 10. It was the only reason to go to the den, the other being the nude Linnea Quigley poster on the wall. I trudged in, slumped on the beanbag chair, and turned on the television. My thoughts drifted to the beginning. It felt like only yesterday. It was May. Father had lost the right side of his head in a crap-shooting accident and was in physical therapy. It was just flesh, as he called every injury, his own or others. He went to the roadside physical therapy bar and grill, finishing both his session on a tray of pork hocks. While driving back, he saw a sign posted on a curb for a garage sale. On the driveway stood tables with items spread across them. In the garage, clothes hung from hangers. Overlooking it all was a man at a table with a cash register, blind to what he was in for. Father sped forth up the driveway and to the home, slamming his brakes at the moment of collision. There he swung open his door and leapt onto the cement. Never mind the table on its side, the register on the cement. Its door open, its contents spilt across. Never mind his host, lying prone, his wrist crushed beneath his front wheel. "What you got?" he asked, his chin greased from lunch, though the items were plainly visible. "Arg," the man groaned. He gazed down and beheld for the first time the hand. Joe Cocker's Let Love Lift Us Up Where We Belong began playing in the background. The world slowed and faded altogether. Only Father and the hand remained. He stood entranced. Ignoring the man's condition, he reached down and tore it from his wrist, leaving only a bleeding stub. As he described it, it tore cleanly off, as if detachable. "I'll give you 10 cents for it," he assumed, producing his wallet and dropping a dime on the grass beside him. He then returned to his car and laid the hand in his passenger seat, then began his engine. The man's wrist was free for a moment, only to be crushed again beneath his wheel. His engine drowned out the screams. He proceeded to drive home backwards, turning to the hand as he did. "You and me are going to be best friends, and I just know it," he vowed. "I agree," the hand replied. "Whoa, you talk!" he exclaimed, unsurprisingly surprised. Yes, I do." He returned home, where my brother and I were waiting in the den. He dashed in, pausing in the doorway, holding his prize in the air like it were a trophy. We turned, saw, and said nothing. "Sons, I'd like you to meet someone." Now this here little fella ain't just a hand, he's the hand. Huh? I asked. Ack! Ginzo blurted. We watched as a hole formed and opened in the palm. It had moving lips. Hello, it greeted. Sadly, we were unfazed. Gizmo didn't even notice. To him, it was just one of many items in the blur he saw daily. That night I laid awake, stroking my chin, straining to understand. It had no ears, and yet it heard. It had no eyes, yet seemed to see. I could only imagine its other processes. I instantly disliked it, as I did all the talking objects Father insisted on bringing home. The toaster, the ice cream scoop, the toilet brush. I assumed it would wear off, like the wax replica of his head's right side. Alas, I was disproven. Over the coming months, the hand became his best friend. He took it everywhere, to the landfill, to the dumpsters, to the fast food restaurants, to the couch, to the dinner table. It always perched on his shoulder. He fed it by hand and watched it eat. They spoke long into the night after Gizmo and I were asleep. It became a fixture of our days. Naturally, he ignored us, but I was used to this. And Gizmo was satisfied with daily raspberries. One night he strode into the den with the hand on his shoulder. It was much like the first day, only now we were not so unsuspecting. Sons, he declared. Father, I affirmed. I think it's high time I lay down the rules about the hand. I'm listening, I sighed, hoping they would be terse, sensible, and to the point. All right, he said, and cleared his throat. We were not to question the hand, to insult the hand. The hand needed daily petting. The hand needed daily feeding, 3 jars of Hox, 1 for each meal, while we made do with 1. He would feed it himself at dinner, I would otherwise. He would train Gizmo as his mind developed. We had an empty room in the back of the first floor, which was our only floor. In other houses it would be a study, a sitting room. It wasn't, so became the hand's. We were not to enter under any circumstances, especially at night while it slept, that is, with one exception. From now on, if either of you piss me off, you're going to have to... And the phrase debuted. The hand, he claimed, was wise beyond its fingers, more so than the bigwigs in government, the talking heads on television, the eggheads in ivory towers. This he had gleaned from their in-depth discussions. Thus, if we ever erred in our thinking, our behavior, we were to consult the hand. We returned to the lawn where he had first found it. The tables still stood, the wares still on them. He found a parrot's perch for the hand to stand on and brought it home. For you, he said. Why, thank you, it affirmed, and leapt right on, using some muscle in its base. As a side note, the homeowner was still there, right where he had left him, and he wasn't moving. Months passed. One night, as Johnny Carson asked red buttons and inanities, I drifted asleep, then awoke. Normally the day's first movements are its highlight. As my father sleeps for at least 1 more hour, this was an exception. Who do you think you are? He bellowed. Why would you go doing something like this? What? I asked, without the slightest interest. This! He beckoned to the doorway of the hand's room. I looked, and to my delight there was the hand. Its flesh was pale, its body shuddered, the result of missing its daily hock rinds. Needless to say, I burst into laughter. Needless to say, Father didn't. Now you apologize to the hand and promise him you'll never do this again. Nah, I shrugged as I passed into the kitchen. I turned and from the corner saw him trembling, holding the hand to his bare, hairy chest and caressing it. Oh, baby, I'll never let him hurt you again, baby. Hell, I'll never let anyone hurt you again. I know you'll come through for me. Yeah, it feigned agreement. While Father blubbered, it turned and saw me. It locked eyes and stared coldly. I raised my middle finger. I didn't know what it had in mind, only that I had to preempt it. I would put an end to all of this. Dun dun dun. The hovel fell silent. No one spoke until the next day. Not me, not Father, not the hand. Not even Gizmo with his beeps and raspberries. We didn't acknowledge each other, not even with our eyes. An equilibrium of cold shoulders. Father chose not to take the hand to a doctor. They don't know how it's done. He seemed to. The whole day he tended it in its room. He wrapped it in a small blue blanket and propped its head with a sock. He went to his own room and brought his trash can, standing it beside it. He went to the kitchen and brought his spoon, fed it dollops of filth while caressing its head. I stayed in the den, hearing without listening. Are you okay?" he whimpered. Yeah, I am," it groaned, slowly nodding, exaggerating its condition. As I peered from the den, it turned and glared. I responded in kind. That night, Father declined dinner. "How can I possibly eat Horcocks when my best friend is suffering?" he asked, as if the answer was self-evident. That night we trudged to the dinner table, collapsed on our seats, and gazed at each other. "Now, son," he began, clearing his throat, "in light of today, you ain't eatin'." "An acceptable loss," I dismissed, "but I see you still have my jar at the table." "Tonight that's Gizmo's." "Ah," I acknowledged. He twisted off its top and slid it to my brother, who gobbled gleefully, spilling on his chin and bib. I didn't care. I needed a clear mind and an empty gullet, and carbohydrates threatened both. From the table I peered again into the hand's room, and again it peered back. The night had come. I waited until Father fell off his chair and lost consciousness, face first on the floor, until Gizmo did the same into his bowl. Then I crept to the den, slumped on the beanbag, and turned to Afterlife with Johnny Carson. I didn't care for the night's episode, Angie Dickinson. I just needed to pass the time. At odd intervals, I would suddenly glance to see if the hand had fallen asleep. It did, or at least seemed to. I waited slightly longer to ensure. Then I crept up to my room, squeezed on my black catsuit, the one I wore when Father and I robbed nearby Wendy's locations. I withdrew my sawed-off 12-gauge. I loaded it carefully, then blew on the end, just to make sure and for appearances, then crept back to the kitchen. There I paused and peered into the hand's room. It was there, sound asleep on its perch. Still, I crept to the precipice and paused, cocking there so as not to wake it. Then I crept in. "Elliot," it said, startling me. "Elliot, you don't want to do this." "Why?" I retorted, surprised he was awake. Had I woke it? It had only been pretending to sleep. What have you ever done for me?" "Because I have this," it declared. I heard the sound of a gun cocking. I peered and discerned the outline of a shotgun resting between its palm and fingers, one of whom gripped its trigger. I had underestimated him. Slowly I backed into the wall, holding my pistol. It was a mystery how it obtained it, as we'd never owned one and I'd never seen it before. Perhaps it had conned my father into buying it. At the moment, I'd no time to speculate. "Now, Elliot," it continued, "as you know, I'm a flunker now, and your father has really taken a liking to me." I didn't respond. "Now you don't want to have to hurt your father, do you?" Again, I didn't respond. "Well, do you?" it asked, growing frustrated. "I don't care," I yelled, crushed the trigger and fired toward it. Finger slipped, bitch. The room exploded. The hand leapt to the floor, taking its gun and firing. I dodged and rushed to the den. There I fired again, and it again, and I again, and it again, then both at once, then both at once, then both at once again. Somehow we both dodged all the blasts as they ricocheted around, shattering light bulbs and puncturing furniture. In the midst, Father appeared in the corner of my eye, eyes wide with shock. The din must have roused him. Righting himself was still a protracted struggle. What are you? He yelled, frazzled, tugging his remaining hairs. The stray shells struck the Linnea poster. The walls crashed around us, the ceiling on our heads. "My house! My everything! It's all coming down! I got nothing!" he shrieked. "Nothing left!" As his one-story shack crumbled around him, as its ceiling fell to the floor, as its walls fell to the floor, all four at once. As the floor itself cracked and peeled, as dust billowed in the air and drywall tumbled around him. Amidst it all, I peered around but couldn't see the hand. Its shells had ceased firing. Luckily, the house wasn't large enough to harm its residents. We stood largely unscathed, no dirtier than usual. "Hand!" Father yelled. "Hand!" To no response, he began to survey the ruins, hurrying from spot to spot as best his bloated frame allowed. He scoured everywhere. Under the couch, the chairs, the drywall, on his stomach, on his knees, his eyes squinted, his ears and neck craning. Everywhere to no avail. For my part, I stood in place and watched tiredly. "Goo-goo," someone said. We turned to see Gizmo, laying under a chunk of drywall. The hand lay limp and lifeless in his mouth. He didn't chew as he chewed everything else. It simply lay dead. The weight of falling wood must have killed it. It had no bullet holes. The shotgun lay beside him, smoking from its barrel. Father's eyes bulged, and he began to tremble. "Damn it, Gizmo! Don't eat him!" He hurried to his 35-year-old son, reached forth and tore it from his jaws, then fell to his knees and gazed upon it, clenched it firmly and shook it back and forth to no avail. It simply lay, as limply as it had in Gizmo's mouth. How could this have happened? Gizmo gazed blankly at him, at the morsel, then to his side, and noticed a small chunk of drywall. He grabbed it, slid it in his mouth, and began to chew, his eyes lit. Father rose to his feet, cocked his arm, and hurled it across the room. It landed with a splat and slid down the wall. He gazed blankly and yelled, "Ah! Ah!" Were there a camera, it would have pulled back, revealing the empty lot where our shack had stood, then farther revealing our neighborhood, then farther still revealing the town, then still farther revealing the surrounding roads and fields. For my part, I stood and gazed blankly.